people here know, once I start talking, it's really hard to shut my ass up. So you better get your notebook out, get your popcorn ready, have some coffee or something, because here we go. First of all, thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to join us this morning. Yes, I do speak quickly, and I love the fact that this entire group of people is really actually a mix. We do have about, I would say, maybe 55% of people who do know me relatively well or were studio members of the Actors Network. Many of them were lifetime members, and yet we also have people like Erin Wu and a few other people who have known me for about 19 seconds, and yet she's still here. So this comes from a lot of my union work that I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, speaking at AFI. But before I start in on the actual 15-minute segments, I just want to really talk quickly to everyone, because the whole point of this, whether anybody in this room chooses to continue on or not, this is important for me to start with this, which is why I made the word dreams the first acronym of this program. And a lot of you guys know that I'm from the rural South. You know, a dream is like a river. No, I'm not going to sing Garth Brooks, because Jane Kinsey will lose her mind, because she can actually sing. What I mean by that is the following. You may have heard the cliche somewhere in your life that a goal is just a dream with a deadline. Now, I like the cliche. I like the quote. It's a little dangerous in this profession because we don't necessarily have a deadline. I am somebody who has said for many, many, many years that if you choose to be an actor and you actually work at being an actor, not only does it not matter where you wake up on this planet every day, you're always going to be an actor. And it's one of the most important parts of this program to understand, because this program is not about the show. This program is not about the art. It's about the business. And we freaking hate the business of show business. I'm using the word hate. And I say that with love, because it's just not our nature. I get that. I've always gotten it. People who know me know I get that. Don't forget, I'm a Pisces. I really would just rather be in the corner like you guys, saying some goofy shit with a guitar, drinking some Jack Daniels. We all know this, or at least the people who know me really well know this. But that doesn't alter the fact that if we decide we want to actually get paid to perform, unfortunately, it becomes a business. And so I want to really quickly reference a movie. Now, for a lot of the younger kids, as I'll call you, you may not know this movie, or you may have tragically seen the remake, which they should never have done. But in the vein of dreams, guys, there was a movie back in the day, I think it was in the late 70s, called Goodbye Girl with Marsha Mason and Richard Dreyfuss. And if you've never seen it, I highly recommend you actually go back and watch it, because it's brilliant. But one of the things about the movie that's one of the most important parts about the inception of the Actors Network and everything that I discuss is, in that movie, Richard Dreyfuss is an actor. And he is doing a stage play. This is the core of the movie. I'm not ruining it for you, trust me. It's a love story. It's not about being an actor. But in the movie, he's on a stage play, and the stage play leads to somebody being in the audience who comes back after stage and basically gives him a role in a movie. That little moment encapsulates one of the reasons we don't like the business, and one of the reasons why we really wish we didn't have to fool with it. We all just want our art and our work to get us a really terrific representative and equal money. I'm with you. I get it. I've had 47 representatives in my career. Trust me, on the sunscreen, I'm with you. And typically, does that ever happen? Yes, it does. It still happens to this day all over the world. But it tends to happen in the first 1 to 5 or 6 years that you're an actor. And so my thing has always been, going back to the early days of the Actors Network, is if it happens for you, if it goes that way, then you can erase everything that I've ever said about how to assess, view, and pursue the business of show business. Go ahead. Etch a sketch it away. Like anybody under 40 won't get that at all. Thank you very much, Paul, for the laugh. Because, I need some smiles, folks, because I usually do this shit live, and I'm a former comic, so I need some funny once in a while, because this is just weird. But But the bottom line is, if it happens that way, then just erase me. That's cool. But here's the problem. What if it doesn't? Because the truth of the matter is, it doesn't happen for 99.5% of us. And what I noticed over the years, and what I continue to notice, it doesn't matter what age we are. It doesn't matter how many pieces of technology we have. It leaves us very lost. And then what happens after 5 or 6 years, and we've all either met ourselves or met people like this, then we just meet the educated, jaded cynic. And one of the things Kevin promised himself way back when I moved here from Atlanta via rural Nashville was, I never was going to become a cynic. And I haven't, and it's hard. It's very hard. But what you wind up with is you wind up with a collection of a community. It doesn't matter whether it's Sydney, London, Stockholm, or anywhere else. You have a lot of what we would call veterans of the business who are basically sitting around like the play Waiting for Godot. And they're lost, and they're defiant, and they're irritated. And the whole point of Dreams and the whole point of this program is for you to always have something now in perpetuity that isn't lost when the topical discussion is over at the Actors Network, that you can go back to and remind yourself of. That is the point of this entire thing. Because I don't want to destroy anyone's dream. I never have. The reality of the business sometimes does that to us, you guys. It just does. It's a tough profession. But I'm asking you, since you're sitting here this morning, whether you continue on or not, at least until noon today, do me a favor. Try to turn your mind. Either turn yourself right to the present moment to start now, or maybe even turn your mind back to when you first started. Even if your when you first started, Aaron, was 3 years ago, whatever. I don't care. But I'm just asking you to look at your dreams with a slightly different wrinkle, a slightly different perspective, because it's not too late. Every single human type on the planet today works in this business. Now, I will get down to the micro of a whole bunch of crap. Trust me. But this morning, these 6 parts that I'm going to do are going first, and they're being presented for a reason, because they are the foundation of the rest of this stuff. So with that said, that's my general opener about Dreams. Are we ready?
Cool, Kevin, let me...
Remember, people, I can't hear you, so I need some nut. Can I get an amen? All right, here we go. All right, so commencing with, I get to hit my start here now, so I actually have a little clock there to remind me to shut the hell up and move on to the next subject. So here it comes. Dreams tends to start with a D. Now, some of you guys have heard a version of this, or some of you may have actually purchased my book, and you saw the chapter on the decision. And it is the very first thing that I will ever talk about, always, because I consider it to be paramount. I wish I had met me a long time ago in Tennessee, so somebody could have said this to me. There's cliches that we like that say, if you want to change everything, change your attitude. Great. I'm going to start with this, because let's remember, we can be actors and do anything we want. We don't have to chase money, guys. This is a choice that you make. This is something that you put yourself in the position of. And yet all of us really would like, we would prefer that our show art skill set would simply just take care of the business. And the reality is, it just doesn't work that way. And the reason why this is the very first thing that I talk about is because I know that we just want to act. I get it. And I also know, especially for those who've known me a long time, you may not like some of the stuff that I say. I may piss you off from time to time. Good. That's what an actual coach or an actual fitness instructor or anybody else is supposed to do. I love you all, but tough love is a part of life. Never forget, this is exceedingly important. I am on your side. I want you to do nothing but be uber successful. Pass me, blow by me. Look back and stand on a stage one day and say, if it wasn't for Kevin E., I wouldn't be here today. I would love that. But I got news for you. I'm not stopping, so you're going to have to catch me. All right? But to that end, while I know that we just want to act, stop and think about this for a second, everybody. Real quick, jot it down. If I actually recorded you with a time code How many minutes a day do you actually think you act? Scripted work. Even sitting in an acting class, how much time do you actually spend working? Now, if you were to break that down, I'm telling you right now, for a week, it's not a lot of time, which means we spend more of our time as actors using our left brain than we do our right brain. So I struggle with the fact that I've been told so many times that actors just can't handle the left side of this profession. I don't buy it. You drive, you own houses, you have careers. I don't buy it. So I'm sharing with you that part of what the decision is imperative with regards to being an artist. Guys, casting is timing and scenario. And if we define casting as being hired, then by definition, it's not personal. And while I can say that, you've heard it 1,000 times. You've said it to yourself 100 times. You've said it to other actors 500 times if you're old enough. The question is, when are you going to believe it? When are you going to own it, that it's not personal? It's why I make grocery store jokes and I make buying shoe analogies all the time. Because if you walked into a grocery store and you literally thought about every single thing that was possible to buy in the store, you may literally still be standing in the aisle with an empty basket 10 minutes later, just completely overwhelmed. And yet when we go to buy shoes, we usually tend to buy shoes because we know exactly what kind of shoe, exactly what we want to get on the day we walk in because of the time of the year or the occasion that we have to go to. That right there is because we're talking about buying things that are inanimate. But we are widgets. We are physical humans that are being bought and sold. And that, my friends, as I like to say, is a whole other Oprah. That's a whole different conversation. Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate that. You never know who Oprah's going to make laugh. You just never know. I just throw it out there. I don't know. That's a whole other thing. But here's the key. We are widgets that are special and unique. I get that. But that's us to us. It's not us to them. We are a shoe on a rack. And that's not meant to take anything away from you as a human. But if that takes something away from you as a human because I'm sitting here saying it, then pursuing this for money, especially in a big city, is probably not for you. For people who've known me for a long time, I grew up in a tough part of the country. And I'm a tough SOB. I played third base. I'm a nice guy, but I'll hit you in the head with a 2x4. However, I'm also a Pisces. I'm actually extraordinarily sensitive. People offend me all the time. Hollywood, anywhere Hollywood is, has never offended me. Because Hollywood tells you exactly what it is. You want to be an actor? You are expendable and you are disposable. And that even goes all the way almost to except for about 0.01% of the stars. I know people who have monster resumes, people who've won awards, who've had amazing careers, who can't get a job. I know people who have 7 series who literally have retired because they can't get a job. So the concept, guys, that you're going to always be taken care of at some point just because of blah, it's not necessarily true. That's what makes the decision so important about you choosing from this day forward to understand I am a 5'10" white guy. Let's just take in that a moment here in the United States of America at the moment. I am better looking to some. I am ugly to others. I, Kevin E. West, with regards to the business, don't care. I could care less which of those things I fall into to someone, because I am a type of shoe sitting on a shelf. I'm a really good shoe. When you wear me, I freaking rock. That's just a metaphor for hire me. I don't mess around, but that doesn't mean that you need to walk in and buy my shoe every time. And when you don't, it doesn't mean that I'm a shoe sitting on the shelf being upset about it. Most of the jobs that I go up for, you guys, you could cast a woman of color, or a dude who's 6'5" and black and weighs 250, and you would be casting somebody fairly. So until you sit down and actually decide, you cannot do this with somebody else, in my opinion. You have to do this by yourself. And if you've never done it before, I'm begging you that between now and Sunday, because if you wait past Sunday, you ain't going to do it. I'm begging you now to understand, write it down for all you mantra people. You know, if I was in your house and we'd find sticky shit all over the house that you put up someplace, like there's 7 on the mirror in the bathroom, and there's 1 on the bedpost, and then there's a couple of hidden in a couple of weird places that if I was like, why is that over there? If you're a mantra person, write this down someplace. I am a product for sale. I am talented, and it isn't personal. Because if you cannot own that, if you cannot breathe that, if you cannot live that, and if you can't separate that out from your own personal feelings of how people treat you in your personal life or at work, then trying to be somebody who pursues the performance part of this profession and what I call just scripted, and scripted includes voiceover, all kinds of voice, it includes all of those things. This profession is going to become 100 times harder from you, and it's already hard enough. I think we could all probably kind of agree with that. It's hard enough, man, to stay positive. It's hard enough to find those nugget moments where you feel appreciated. This is one of the reasons why it's not a part of this program per se, but it's one of the reasons why I had a topical discussion called Addicted to Theater. I wasn't making fun of theater, and I'm certainly not making fun of class. But a lot of times we become addicted to class because we at least want a platform someplace where we're able to go act on a regular basis and feel appreciated for what it is that comes out of our human instrument. I understand that, but that has nothing to do with being a human product for sale to them, to the outside, my phrase for them is the other side of the desk. Because we're on this side of the desk, and literally every single other human being in this profession is on the other side of the desk. It doesn't matter what their title is. And that's where I'm coming from for the most part with regards to the decision. This is difficult. I'm not telling you. You may have to do this ritual over and over again. Go sit in a park. Whatever your muse is, no distractions. You got to look yourself in the mirror. And you have to say, this is not just some, S 1978 thing, Eugene Levy, I'm okay, you're okay, and by golly, people like me. That's not this. Thank you, Catherine, I appreciate that. I always got to get a good Eugene Levy reference in. I'm talking about truly owning the fact that you're a shoe. Deal with it. Your shoe's completely fine. And here's the last thing I'm going to say about the decision. We have the ability in many, many different ways, from gaining weight to losing weight to coloring our hair to breast augmentation. Maybe not so much for you, Paul Rose, on the whole breast thing, but all of those things are plausible. This is what I'm going to ask of you, and I'm going to beg of you going forward. And I don't care how old you are. This is not an age statement. Please be sure that if you choose to do anything to alter the appearance, it's a really good Kevinism to write down, to alter the appearance of your product, please be sure you are doing it for personal reasons and not professional reasons. When you start screwing with your body because you think it's going to get you more often hired, in my opinion, you are making a dark psychological mistake. Now, that's just my opinion. I have a lot of them. You can disagree with it. That's cool. Somebody may say to me, since my man Paul Jackson's here, see, if I had Paul's hair, if I was actually salt and pepper in this, I probably would book about 20% more jobs. But I'm too vain, so I'm not going to stick gray in my hair. Screw it. That doesn't mean that I couldn't do that. As long as I don't cycle, and also coloring my hair isn't permanent. So if you want to alter the visual of your product, please feel free. But I highly recommend you do that for your personal self first, and not in hopes that it's going to give. I'm not talking about getting paid to change your appearance because you have a job. I'm not talking about some Christian Bale thing where you get down to a stick size to play, be in The Fighter, or Matt Damon in Courage Under Fire. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about being paid to change it. I'm talking about choosing to do it because you think it's going to make your product better. Please make your product better because you want to make your product better as a person, not as a product in Los Angeles. But you have to make this decision. It's imperative. It's emboldened on you. Okay? Are we good? If somebody just nods or gives me a thumbs, then I'm beautiful. Now, I know we can't ask questions. It's not like back in the day, because I'm going to be lucky. I have a little bit of iced coffee. I know that some of you guys saw me speak a long time ago, and I think I spoke that day, Michael, in the gym for about, 6 hours straight with one bathroom break? So after 90 minutes, I'll just be getting started, but that's okay. So here we go. So now draw a line on your piece of paper. It's time for the R. And O. Is this one of my faves? Now remember, this is one of 7 conversations. I'm going to go micro in a lot of ways in this program. Dreams is a pullback. So let us talk about relationships in Hollywood. Oh, Lord. One of my issues with the word relationship by definition is we use it all the time because we use it in life. Of course we do. We're all seeking relationships, or more notably, you could choose to attach the word relationship to all sorts of what Kevin calls associations, which I personally think is a much better word in Hollywood than relationships, personally. And I'm going to, for the next 14 minutes, tell you why. So I happen to think that the word relationships in Hollywood is really misleading. That's first and foremost. I think it's drastically misleading. Again, everything from an actor's perspective, right? Everything from our chair trying to get hired, trying to, one of my favorite phrases always, and you'll probably hear me say it 30 times in this program, enhance the likelihood. 3 of my favorite words about being an actor. There are no guarantees in life. There are no guarantees as an actor, but you can do a lot of things to enhance the likelihood. And when you view relationships in the wrong way, and you're about to hear a really interesting story from me if you've never heard it before in this program, you very much can actually destroy the concept of ever having one again with somebody. But before I go down that road, let me remind everyone that, we like to say it's who you know. Okay, here again, I'll do a lot of begging during this program. I'm begging you again, please stop saying this when it comes to Hollywood, because it's who you know in life. I believe we've seen that in politics now, and I don't know, for the last 200 years. It's who you know when you need a lawyer, when you need a doctor, when you need some advice on how to fix your car, because some of us used to do that crap in the South. It's always who you know. The reason I'm saying it is stop making so many things that are common in life just about Hollywood in some negative way. And that's one of the worst phrases that we diminish ourselves in Hollywood over. Is go, well, it's who you know. Yeah, it is. It's also who I know to try and get a Dodgers tickets during the playoffs when it's sold out. So it's the same shit all the time, okay? It's not just showbiz. And typically, one of the reasons I also don't like the word relationships is by definition, relationship takes on a natural, in our minds, a natural length to it. There's a natural length to the idea of relationships. And while a lot of us don't necessarily have a hard time knowing somebody for a long time, we tend to challenge, and as being actors, we tend to be challenged with how to first meet somebody, And then we tend to be challenged with how to maintain or build, quote unquote, that relationship, which I don't call a relationship, I call an association. I put the word professional in front of friend. I put the word in front of relationship. I put the word professional in front of all of those things. And there's a reason why. Because I was a third baseman, which by definition, if you know anything about baseball, means I probably don't have a lot of patience. Because if I had more patience, I'd play shortstop because it'd be 2 more bounces, but I don't have time for that shit. What I'm saying is patience is not my favorite word, but I learned it in Hollywood. And patience is one of the most important words that you could ever associate with the word relationship in Hollywood. It is the difference between dating with purpose and having a one-night stand. And I'm not a moralist. I'm all for one-night stands. But when you start talking about trying to build relationships or have relationships in Hollywood, smash and grab is usually not a good way to go about approaching people, especially from the chair of being a non-star, or thank you, Paul, or a non-working actor. It's just not intelligent. This whole word, this whole concept for us takes a great deal of patience, and we don't tend to have it. So you have to practice that more. Truth be told, I would share with you a much better metaphor for the level or degree of relationship would be much more having somebody who's a friend with benefits. That's actually much to me more the metaphor of what you want to try and have your Hollywood associations be like in terms of regularity and or actual deep intimacy. And let me tell you why. Kevin, back when he first moved here, met somebody who at the time was casting 3 network shows. That's right, folks. There was a time, and it still is today, when one person was casting 3 network shows. They were all in the top 10 in television. How you doing? And Kevin decided that he was going to become friends with this person. Needless to say, because we are limited on time, I failed miserably. Oh, I accomplished becoming friends. It just was one of the worst mistakes of my career. Because when that friendship, which became very involved, didn't work out, not only was that person never going to see me for any of the shows she cast, on top of that, during those 6 months, the 17 active casting director friends that I met through her also threw me out with the bathwater. So let me say this loud and clear. And it's not just because I have one bad story. I could give you 15 positive stories of the philosophy that I'm sharing with you about relationships in Hollywood. Don't try to be friends. Make sure you build a solid form of professional friendliness. That's what you're working for, in my opinion. Guys, I hear actors say all the time, like, oh man, typecast somebody. Like, listen, I got news for you. I take a paycheck. You want to hire me as a racist politician? I'm in because I look just like one. That's called casting and acting. I'm not. I don't take it personally. Well, we always complain about being typecast. You know what one of the easiest ways to be typecast is? Have somebody on the other side of the desk know you really well, and they'll never be able to see you outside of that box. You want some incentive to not become too close to somebody in the quote unquote concept of a professional relationship? There you go. Because when you get too close to someone, they know all that stuff about you. They've seen you cry and be sad. They can't see you for that comedy they're casting anymore. When you know you're funny. We share TMI with people we become friends with. And I'll be really honest with you. Executive producers and directors and producers shit don't need to know that about you. That's not helping you. I promise it isn't. Now, is it possible and plausible that naturally, in a number of different ways, you will eventually become genuine friends with somebody on the other side in this industry that actually could be helpful to you? Absolutely. 100%. But for the guy who's as ambitious as I am, and for the guy who through this whole program is always going to push you to go do stuff, I'm never going to push you to try to become good friends with someone on the other side of the desk. I want that, which will take time, by the way. I want that to be something that happens organically. Because two of my favorite words about building associations is humility and discretion. You have to practice humility constantly to build a solid relationship, in my opinion, of all levels. I have many of them. They have taken years to accomplish. But if one of them leads to a series next year, I'm cool with that. And so rather than using the phrase going forward from now on, and many people have heard me say this and some of you have not, it's not who you know. It's who knows you. And within that statement is, as much as it's who knows you, it's how they know you. How have they gotten to know you? How have you controlled letting them know you? Again, I reference a lot of country songs because there's one, it's not what I did, it's what I didn't do. So often for us as actors, and you might notice I'm a fairly verbose person. Okay, that should have been way funnier. But I can sit around at a party or a place after the first 5 years I lived in Hollywood, having been burned and learned my lesson. I can sit around and say nothing with 6 people standing around talking. I learned that. Humility and discretion. I learned it the hard way. That's why we had a mantra, learn from the mistakes of others. You don't have time to make them all yourself. Aaron, you do not need to make this mistake and have 10 years go by. Learn it now. Less is truly more in the process of building relationships. It is. I promise it is. Be friendly from an intelligent, healthy distance. If it slowly happens organically, great. But once again, if by chance an example of it happening organically is all of a sudden this person actually invites you to something that you would probably deem a fairly close, personal, intimate thing to be invited to, like a house party or whatever, I'm encouraging you, it's natural for us to go, oh my God, I'm in now. Like, okay, cool. But I'm still sharing with you that if you try to push that to being further in, because I use a metaphor as a dartboard about probably 15 different times in this program, work, the bullseye. You're not trying to work to be in the bullseye. You're not even trying to work to be in the secondary outer ring of a dartboard. Be in the third ring, which actually has some space to it on a dartboard when you look at a picture, if you don't know it by heart like I do, after this is over. That's where you want to be with almost all of your professional associations, in that space. It's close enough. That's where you want to be. Because what we spend so much time doing, it's natural, guys. I get it. I know our community because I know myself. We're constantly busy trying to make sure they know us. Spend a little more time trying to get to know them. Ask them questions. Engage about them. What's going on in their life. Every single time you have the opportunity. That's how you slowly build a really healthy professional association. Just enough. They know you like that. They know you like this. You're from here. They know you're from. They don't need to go DEFCON 1 on your past relationships. Trust me, they don't. And this is not gender related or sexual orientation related. This is professional position related. That is all this conversation's about. It's just about the professional position of the folks on the other side and how detrimental it can be, totally unconscious to even them, when they have too much information on you. You can never have too much information on them. So again, flip it around. Look at it differently. Because I have a little formula for you I want you to write down. And again, for the people who are younger, who weren't members of the Actors Network or don't know me very well, I just make shit up, just so you know. I just make up shit. I make up percentages. I just make them up all the time. Here's the funny part. They're pretty right. Because I've been doing this for a while. If you could get 80% of the people that you have a professional association with when they're doing something that you're actually right for, to consider you 50% of the time, you win. 80%, not 100, and only 50, which is why what I've always said is one of the main goals an actor should always have is be constantly looking to create more associations. People come and go from the business, people die. You have to keep creating associations so that the 80% of the people you have an association with, 50% can actually equal some actor activity. Okay? Are we beautiful? This is baseline, guys. This is, trust me, there's other parts of this program that are associated with relationships. This is the foundational macro pullback look. Okay? You got some thumbs up? See, I can't see other pages. I just see whether Shannon's about to fall asleep or not. That's really all I can see right now. Because, you know, it's not a softball game, Shannon. Here we are. Shannon was on the first Actors Network softball team that lasted, I think, 2 seasons before I had to almost murder some people and we had to stop doing it. All right, so draw to the line. Here we go. Have we started yet? Are we sort of in?
Yeah, Kevin, real quick, I'll just jump in. Have a drink, relax. There might be others who need to grab something to drink. What relax. I do want to do, yeah, exactly. Well, in a nice way. I do want, because a couple people asked, if I just want to attempt, because we are recording, just to share my screen so that people can kind of follow along with what we're trying to do here. So you have just delved into relationships. I don't know if everyone can see that. Let me make sure I am sharing my screen here.
Yeah, there's no sharing up yet.
That's okay. Let's see if I've got it.
Oh, I'm not concerned.
No problem. There we go.
Okay. Oh, holy smokes. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
Oh.
All right. But I don't want to take you away from what you're doing. I just want the folks to know that there's some elfin magic happening behind the scenes as we delve into what we're doing here. You've just covered relationships, and I presume we'll get into the next aspect of dreams. But some people did ask. We do have it. At the same time, I don't want to take you away from the magic you are creating in front of the camera.
Right now, I'm just sweating my butt off in my house. That's currently what's happening. Because I got lights and a thing, and you know, it's hot over here in Southern California. It's not Sweden right now, although I wouldn't mind being in Sweden. Okay, are we ready? Everybody draw the line? All right, here comes elements. We're up to the E, kind of like the middle initial. Now again, guys, I am the person who can literally overthink shampoo directions. So that should have been way funnier. And I love me some micro. And there are 6 more parts of this to get into the micro. But I want to pull back on something that even Actors Network members probably haven't really heard me talk about in this way. And that's the elements of this profession. Because if I really broke that down, honestly, many of you guys know that I could talk about this profession. Sadly, I have actually charted this for 125 hours. And Richard, even you would struggle with enjoying the process of 125 hours. So there's a lot to get to. But in the simplistic vein, the truth of the matter is this profession for us, going towards it from a money standpoint, really just breaks out to 3 things. And from that standpoint, I want to go and stay macro on it when we start, because it's really imperative that we do that. And rather than me sort of going through all 3 of them slowly, I'm actually going to say them all so you can jot them down on your piece of paper, leaving some space, and then maybe make a note or 2. And the 3 elements that really make up all of this profession are priorities, projects, and people. That's it. When you feel your ears bleeding, metaphorically, when you find yourself frustrated or tired, when you need to hit the reset button, whatever that means to you at that time, pull back to this part of dreams and just go, okay, what am I discussing with regards to the business of my career? Am I discussing my priorities? Am I discussing projects? Or am I discussing people? Because if you wait around to be actually shown what someone else or something feels should be the priority of what you spend time on pursuing the profession, you're dead. Again, I get that the nature of us, I don't necessarily like the word leader or follower, but we are not by nature wanting to go out and push on the business side of the profession. We all know that. But there's a difference in pushing and actually deciding what your priorities are about this business. You, in my opinion, need to start out by choosing a couple of three of those. Because again, going back to the phrase, I just want to act, is like, I used to say to people all the time, like Tom Katzis or Michael Schoenfeld or Glory or Joy would go, well, I want to do television. And I would go, oh, so you want to be a game show host? And then people would look at me like I was an asshole. And I'm not saying at that moment I wasn't being, I'm just saying that that's television. So when you look at what your priorities are, you could use the word focus, but it really helps out. Even again, starting today, right now, clean slate, etch a sketch. I bet for some of you who are over 30 years old who have been doing this for more than 10 years, oh my God, how much easier that conversation is for you to have with yourself than it was 20 years ago. Part of that's father time, part of it's experience, part of it's getting kicked in the teeth, whatever. But once again, we still have people on this Zoom, and I still speak to people all over the world who are under the age of 30, who still have more energy, etc., than necessarily I do, or just simply a lack of wisdom of getting your teeth kicked in. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the incentive for doing it. Just understand, again, the grocery metaphor. There's too much stuff in the grocery store for you to buy everything in one trip. So one of the biggest things, or the elements of this profession, is you spending time understanding what your priorities are. They're yours. They're not wrong. And if you hang out with people who try to tell you they're wrong, I'm going to recommend you move by them and step around and keep going. You don't need people around you telling you that if you've really thought through something, if you've really given something a fair shake, and this is what you feel from in here, out of here, that's your priority, and you got people around you telling you that you're on crack, I would just step aside and keep moving on down the road. You don't have to kick them off the dartboard, but I'd probably push them to the outer ring. That would be my recommendation. But priorities is a huge element of this profession that we think we pay attention to, but it goes away. We don't seem to understand that when you look at stage versus film and television, or even stage versus commercials, much closer to voiceover, because we know there are 50-year-olds who have a voice that sounds like a 12-year-old. But you still have to be so good that you sound better as a 12-year-old than the 18-year-old who's trying to sound like a 12-year-old. So you still have to be really good at it. But on stage, we know we can play 25 years younger and 35 years older. And we sometimes grow up with that stuff. And then we get into the real world casting, and it clarifies for us that when it's for money and these people are risking money to hire us, that it gets more difficult to get hired in a lot of the areas we would like to work. And that's why having priorities about what it is you're trying to pursue and what it is you're trying to accomplish is really important. I did daytime television. I actually worked on General Hospital for a long time. I never pursued daytime television because it wasn't a priority. There's a difference between pursue and accept. And I'm recommending that, again, macro, you understand that one of the most important elements in this profession to pursue it based on the limited amount of time and mental capacity we have for the business is you got to get your priorities right for yourself. Number two, projects. Now, I get that we commonly use projects because we tend, especially in the last 15 years of digital technology, we like to talk about projects because we're doing one, or we have a buddy who's doing one. And that's why we use the word projects as opposed to it. And I get that. But that's not really, obviously, most of the stuff we'd like to do is a project someone else is doing at a really high level. And we, as a community, which I understand, we tend to catch ourselves discussing the roles that we would like to play, or the role, looking at a breakdown and, paramedic 4 or Billy or Jane or, the serial killer, whatever. Yeah, serial killer comes out of my head. We tend to look at roles. And one of the things that's frustrating about that mentally is this is where we get into trouble with all the stuff I've sort of already said about the decision is we only see the role and we tend to read ourselves into most of them. But if you get better at pulling back, literally, not even pulling back and looking at the project, whatever it may be, I don't care what type of project it may be, you're going to start seeing a view of that project more the way the executive producer who's risking the money for that project. And when you look at all elements, especially for all of those like Catherine and other people I know here who have gone about making their own films and gone down that road of actually developing or writing or amending a script and then having to cast the whole thing and fund the whole thing and all, and you start realizing that if you pull back and start viewing everything as a project, I guarantee you, because you're intelligent people, you'll start realizing that when up close a role in a project looks like something you would be right for based on the title or the ethnicity or the description, and you pull back and look at the whole project, you'll start realizing why 7 of the 10 you thought you were perfect for, you aren't. And that's one of my biggest things about this profession, because we are overwhelmed constantly. We are constantly psychologically chasing everything. Very inappropriately, my mother made a comment to me once. We were someplace at a beach, like in Florida or somewhere, and she's looking down the beach at all the women running around in bikinis. She's like, how do you choose? And I was like, seriously, Mom? I was like, first of all, we don't choose; they choose us. That's number one. I said, number two, you just pick out a couple and say hi and see how it goes. But from a Hollywood actor or Sydney or Melbourne or London or Paris or anywhere else, with digital technology today, you and I both know there's projects a go-go. There's somebody someplace is like 19 in the backyard with 3 friends, a balloon, a goat, and a guy named Billy. Everybody's doing a project. But we tend to focus on the role, and I get that. So I'm just trying to focus your mind that one of the key elements, one of the 3 main elements of this profession are just projects. Doesn't matter what it is, but start looking at it as a project more than just what might be right for you in it. And you'll suddenly start seeing the way the picture looks. Like if you stand too close to an Escher painting, you probably don't get it. But if you back up about 10 feet, you get it. And if you don't know who that is, you'll look it up and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Pulling back to look at projects as an element of this profession is a really, really huge foundational shift to make going forward, because you only have so much time. As we go through the other 6 parts of this program, man, I'm going to wear you out in a good way with stuff to do, with options, angles, ways to pull this off. But you can't do it with every project. You can't do it for every role. We all only have so much time, and I don't even like using the word can't, but sometimes it's appropriate. So understand that, try to start viewing stuff as a project, okay? Now, the last one, of course, is people. Now, I just finished talking about relationships, but I want to discuss it in a different way. Obviously, this profession, as any profession is filled with people. And yet, the challenge for us is, and probably one of the biggest things, issue time in power groups all through the Actors Networks, I would probably tell you that the most common challenging thing, and guys, it doesn't matter if it was 1991 or 2021, holy shit, that's 30 years. Oh, by the way, I'm pondering having a Zoom reunion, 30-year reunion on May 1st, just so you know, which is disturbing for me, but there you go. And Aaron's like, I wasn't even born then. Whatever. So obviously we know that people drive us, and some of us are introverts and some of us are extroverts, and some of us are extroverted introverts and some of us are introverted extroverts. I don't care. The reality is, in the world we live in today, even with digital technology, even with all of us having 17 ring lights and 4 tripods in our house now, that we just basically recently turned into a fake Christmas tree over the holidays. That should have been way funnier because clearly no one did that. It just seemed like something someone might do. The reality is you got to pick your spots, but you can't pretend that people don't run this business. This is a people profession. It is a professional, familiarity-driven business. You have to pick your spots. But if you're not careful, once again, you will get overwhelmed because there are people around every corner. Yes, if you happen to be listening to this and you live in Indianapolis, or you live in Nashville, where I'm from, or in Atlanta, where I started my career, or in Minneapolis or Dallas, yes, some marketplaces are smaller. Maybe the numbers of people that you would actually be interested in encountering or trying to create a professional association with, maybe that number is smaller. But the bottom line is it still can get very overwhelming. So what I'm recommending to you is please start small. That's why, again, think about what's in this section. What's the first one? Priorities. Link that to people. Why would certain priorities for certain people exist? Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe it's because of projects. That's what I'm talking about. If you pull back and literally just refilter every single thing about what you think you're going after in your marketplace, wherever that is, and you start looking at it in that way, you will trim out a ton of concern. But then this is what happens to us. What happens to us is you're afraid you're going to miss your shot at the title. And if you don't pursue that, then you're missing out on that. If you don't pursue that, you're missing out on that. Well, here's my wrap to priorities, projects, and people. Hey, Danielle, I think she's in here someplace. If you're actually on a set working, are you available to audition for something? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm just saying
virtually.
metaphorically, we all want to be working. Well, guess what happens when you work? You miss other shit. As we're not ever going to be available for everything all the time.
Right.
So priorities, projects, people. I finished this segment with this. Stop trying to do everything and stop running scared. Breathe and understand there's always another project. You can do the next one. Because if you were working, you would have missed a bunch of them anyway. Everybody with me? You got this? Because I'm drilling down on these 3 a whole bunch in the next 6. But that's your macro. Okay. Oh. Are we up to A now? Cool.
Getting there.
Draw a line.
Yes.
Holy smokes. We're crossing over the Rubicon. There it is. Oh, nice picture there. Did Angel pick that out, Paul? Oh,
Yeah, we have
flower.
not
Very
only
nice.
we have male elves, we have the female elves as well. So I just
Yes.
want to give you a chance to grab a coffee. I'm sure others want to grab something, but this is what we just discussed, which was elements. Whoops, excuse me. There we go. And I just wanted people to see priorities, projects, and people once again. And
So,
turn it back to you, Kevin.
yep. So here we go with aptitude. Ooh. Even Tom Katzis knows I never really talked about aptitude as a subject matter in the Actors Network, but I'm going to today. Now, aptitude is what happened, Jane? What's wrong? I don't know what that means, but okay. So aptitude, if you look it up, is one's natural ability or natural leaning towards something. And I already know, we've already discussed it, we don't tend to have a natural aptitude for the business of show business. And I get that. We all probably get that at this point. So what we have to do right off the bat is, going forward, again, this is another one of those things to do by Sunday, like the decision, is do yourself a favor. Think about all the different things that you've done towards pursuing your career since you became an actor, and maybe jot them down. You pick your titles, you make them up yourself. However they come out of you is your list of stuff. And when you look at them, look at the ones that you think you have more of a natural aptitude for doing. And for those who ever heard me speak at the Actors Network, you would have heard me talk about the fact that this is just like going to school. Some of us had an aptitude for math. My dumb ass took calculus twice. That's how stupid I am. I'm not really sure what the second time was for, because I'm never going to build a bridge, and I still haven't. But some of us have an aptitude for science. Some of us had an aptitude for AP English. But you still couldn't get out of school if you made 3 A's and 2 F's. So I am sharing with you that having an aptitude towards the business is probably going to be a little more all-inclusive than you would necessarily prefer. That's just the nature of this profession. We don't tend to like to have an aptitude for most of the profession. Pursuing the business is much like a roadmap. For those of you in Los Angeles, for those of you in New York, for those of you in Chicago, or down in New Orleans. You can pull out a roadmap, guys, and there's 100 ways to get from point A to point B. As there's a million ways, literally, to go from not working to working, and then from working to not working, and then to working again. There are lots of ways to pursue this business, but you won't do any of them. You won't ever draw yourself a roadmap if you don't find a way to have a little bit of an aptitude towards strategy. You just won't. Notice how strategy comes right behind the word priorities last section? It's exactly why. I mean, I was born tonight, y'all, but it wasn't last night. It's not my first time looking at how we have to deal with pursuing this profession. Some of us don't have much of an aptitude towards strategy, and yet, I bet you, if you look in your life, if you look in the history of your life, I bet you'll find a place and a time in your life where you did have a strategy about something. It may not have been about being an actor. Now you have to overlay it to this, because you can't pursue this profession if you don't have some strategery. Yes, that's purposefully misstated. Thank you. I want you guys to never lose your spontaneity, ever. But I want it to have some planning. I get to be more spontaneous in my life because I choose to be organized. I choose to have a strategy. It makes those gaps in places where we all waste time much more fun for me. Having a strategy in this profession is paramount. And it may not be your natural aptitude, but it is one of those things that I want you to lean towards. So don't lean towards it trying to come up with 10 things about a strategy. Just pick a few. A few things you want to have a strategy about. We are, without question, the most undereducated profession in the world, bar none. I have said this probably 1,000 times since 1991. And it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. We don't make the actual depth and the actual specifics of the business of this profession important. We sure as hell don't make it important at the college university level, and I don't give a shit whether it's an Ivy League school or not. Because the people teaching those classes aren't me. They haven't been here, or other people that I know. They haven't actually lived it for long enough to give a good course on it. So it's just the nature of us. We're not a traditionally very solid educated group about the actual business of our chosen profession. We just aren't. So having an aptitude towards strategy is going to be very important. The second thing, and this may be easier for some of you, like this is my man, Paul Jackson. See, you guys gonna understand why Paul's sitting in that chair. Because Paul has an aptitude for information. And I didn't realize how much of an aptitude I had for information until I actually started the Actors Network. And now I get to reference Michael Schoenfeld, who's sitting here, because he's the oldest living member in terms of history of time in this Zoom. Because back in the day, I used to do an annual quiz at the Actors Network, and the winner of that business quiz got a free month. And that quiz was about information. I wanted to learn. It was a casting director book. It was about, I don't know, it had like 400 people in it. Okay. I wanted to know every single name by heart. I don't know why. I'm a mental case. I don't know. But I had an aptitude for it, so I did. And, to this day, I now understand that I just have a Rain Man brain. It's just, I can't do anything about it. People who know me from back in the day, the first 17 years of the Actors Network, I literally knew every single member by first and last name by heart. I don't know. And said, oh, look at that, Dawn pulling out her old binder up there. But you may not have an aptitude for information, but I guarantee you have an aptitude for information in some part of your life. You couldn't have got where you are today, no matter what your age, no matter where you live, if you didn't. So just understand, with the availability of information to us, it's so easy now to get information. It is such a key part of the pursuit of this profession, because familiarity breeds confidence. Yes, it may breed contempt as well, but that's talking about intimate lovers and sex and shit, and we're not covering that. Okay? Familiarity in anything breeds confidence. The more familiarity, the more you understand about who you're going after, what you're going after, the more confident you're going to be about doing it. So find a way regarding this profession, some couple of elements about it, where you can infuse an aptitude for gathering information. It's one of the easiest things to do when you're tired, when it's late, when you're just sitting up with your laptop in front of you. Cut and paste, dropping in a little notes thing. I mean, guys, compared to back in the day, this is a walk in the park. But having an aptitude for information just makes all the difference in the world, because the more you know, it's not just knowledge is power. No. See, I change all these cliches for us in this profession. If you live in Minneapolis or Dallas, wherever you be, you know what knowing a lot about the information of the people and what's going on in town gives you as an actor? It gives you a sense of ownership. And it's what I watched in Los Angeles for 3 decades, is people who would come here who were talented, who could have worked. But what they never did is they never actually felt or never chose to actually live and be here as an owner of a profession and a professional in this city or your city. Information helps us glean and have a sense of unconscious ownership. And that's what we have to have, because it helps us. We belong. It makes us feel a part of that. So just pick out 3 or 4 aspects of this profession that you can actually go towards having information on, so you feel more a part of it. And the last part of aptitude is the hardest one. And it's unfun. And I know it's unfun. And for all those people who are members of the Actors Network and are a part of a power group, you understand why now I'm putting this in the context of aptitude in this program. You understand why I created issue time. Because we live in a world now in lots of ways, and I'm not going to get, too philosophical or personal, but none of us ever want to be wrong. None of us ever want to get hurt. We want to make sure our kids never break an arm or never do anything or have experienced 1 ounce of pain. Well, that isn't reality, you guys. It sure as hell isn't a reality in a profession where human beings are bought and sold. You are going to face actor issues, just like I did in 1988 and ever since. You are going to face decisions, conversations, encounters that are unfun. No, we don't have to spend all day long talking about turning lemons into lemonade, and I'm not even necessarily saying you have to. But one of the things that we need to begin to try and extend ourselves to, not just accept or be negative about, but actually have an aptitude for dealing with acting profession issues. It may be more natural for some of you than others, because that's what an aptitude is. No, I don't rush out to try and find issues because I have an aptitude for them at this point and they don't faze me. Great, they don't faze me. They just don't. I'm not sure they ever did, at least after that first one. When I got through that, because I almost left, I almost quit. I almost left Los Angeles after that incident with that person I became too close friends with. That was almost the kill, and I've seen it happen to plenty of other people. So there has to be an aptitude in your mind. You have to grow a little bit of a more natural ability for that subject in school you weren't so good at the time. Mine was chemistry. Well, maybe it was physics, but I almost blew up my high school in physics class, so we're not going to go with physics on that. True story. So when it comes to aptitude and issues, you guys just understand the way you begin to have an aptitude for actor issues is you have to embrace them a little bit. You have to realize that no different than relationships in your personal life, most of the actor issues we face are fairly subjective. There's elements of it that may be common to a lot of us, an agent issue, a manager issue, a contract issue with this, whatever it may be, but it's still very subjective to you at that moment, in that moment in time, in that place in your career. They're fairly personal. It's not math. It isn't 1 + 1 = 2. That's not what actor issues are. But if you don't find a way to have an aptitude towards the issues that are going to come at you, then what you aren't going to do is you're not really going to evolve from them. You may think you will have learned them, but I'm talking about evolving from them. Because I happen to feel very strongly, outside of just getting very fortunate with just your work and having that create an avalanche of success, I have a very strong opinion that the more you can become comfortable with dealing with the actor issues that befall you, that force decisions, that force conversations, that force sometimes leaving a representative or saying no to a project, the more you can do that, I believe that there's a great deal of exponential success tied to that. Because all the while that you're doing the aptitude of actor issues, you are slowly but surely doing what I just said in the last segment. You are finding a way to actually prioritize your own career. You now know what I don't want. You now know what I've experienced. We talk about this in relationships all the time. Apply it to your career. Okay? Does everybody understand what I mean by strategy, information, and issues as in terms of aptitude? Are you with me? And can I get an amen?
Amen.
All right. You want to pop that thing up there? I'm not getting used to this now. You're putting the thingy up. So
That's okay, because I'm trying to find that little, I'm trying to nuance this sort of visual mix between, you know,
holy smokes, look at that visual.
Your boyish handsomeness and...
you were up all night just making up pictures, Paul. Look at that thing. What the hell? Is that like Oscar in a hookah room? Like, what is that?
It's exact. I'm trying to find something, what, you know, because there's going to be a cease and desist at some point, and somebody will say, is this a free, yes, this is a free photo. This is available. So people have asked if they can do screen captures. You can go ahead.
That's outstanding. It's
right.
like Oscar in a hookah room.
It was, I said, well, your dreams could go up in smoke. I was trying to create an association, but again, I don't want to, again.
I got you.
Don't read into it.
That's all right. Here we go.
I wanted for the benefit of others. Bear with me while I just
we
move
are,
over.
We are rolling on.
Wanted them to see this. Priorities projects, excuse me. Pardon me. Sorry about that.
And the
there we
next
go.
one.
There we go. Strategy, information, issues, and we are going to get to dreams. Again, for the benefit of everybody, and I'll throw it back to you quickly, Kevin.
Oh, it's perfect.
At the end. I will roll this at the end. Okay, enough screen sharing. Back to the most telegenic.
I like the fact you got the screen up there for the Matrix. Yep, we're on M, guys. See how quickly it goes by? It's just like that. Next thing you only got 2 things left. Matrix, I'm going to be really honest with you, it was a lot of fun for me when I realized I wanted to put this in dreams. And there will forever be in this entire program a natural weaving, a natural crossover. A lot of things cross over in little ways with each other, guys, because they're all inextricably tied to us because of us being individual artists and individual products. So no, despite Paul's really cool graphics, there's not going to be any special effects during this segment, so don't worry about it. But I like the word matrix And of course, there are, a lot of synonyms that we can throw in there. But whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we want to acknowledge it or not, I'm sharing with you as a foundational tool, it is exceptionally imperative for you to make sure, if you've never done it consciously, most of everything I'm going to ask you guys is whether or not you've done it consciously. Have you consciously, as an actor, really spent time assessing the matrix you created? It's your life, y'all. It's not mine. It's what you created. It's your maze. It's your construct, to take literally the word from the movie. And when we don't recognize it, I assure you, whether you realize it or not, whether you have your thumb on it or not, you've created one. All I'm trying to do with this segment of dreams is to make sure you start becoming crystal clear aware of it at all times. Because your matrix is going to affect you in virtually every single thing that you do. Mind ye well what your matrix is, because regardless of where you live, where any of you may move to or move back to California from, or if it were me, I just kind of wish I was in Sydney right now, or perhaps Sweden. And I'm in Studio City, but it's just like that, only completely different. No matter where you go, guys, your matrix is a set of walls. It's what makes up the walls of your life. And one of the main things to your matrix is, do you know your body clock? Do you understand the construct of you? Because over the course of years, one of the greatest things that digital technology and the internet have done for actors when it comes to the business of acting is all of the stuff that you can do for the business of acting that you could do at 11 o'clock at night that you couldn't do in 1991, or at least safely without getting arrested. So unless you start paying attention to your matrix more often than not, you may not be necessarily taking advantage of or planning for strategy. See how this comes after strategy? On how you build your matrix again now. Because you already have one. I'm just asking you if you're aware of it. I had to learn that there were certain things that I naturally wanted to do with my matrix at night after 9 o'clock or on a Saturday morning versus a Tuesday. We tend to just run around and follow all the people around us, and we're not them. Your matrix is you, man. It's based on you. It's imperative that you become very, very aware of the construct that makes up how you function. It's really important because it's fragile. It's precious. And here's the other problem. Even when we don't realize it, just because we live in the same place, it's ever changing and we don't pay attention to it. Yes, some of these are obvious things. You got married, you had kids, some element of, you changed location, some of these, but those are some of the macro parts of your matrix that are easy to assess. A lot of them become much smaller than that. What makes up your matrix, your rhythm, so that at all times you're always positive, you're always certain that you are maximizing your efforts towards the pursuit of the business of your career when you choose to do it. And that you're not just doing it out of some knee-jerk reaction of, this is the worst of like, oh, I haven't done this for a while, so I should. Please, for the love of God, get I should out of your language when it comes to pursuing the business. Because if you I should yourself, you're just going to I end myself. You don't have to have a should do if you're paying attention to what your matrix is, because there's 1,000 things to do to pursue the business in various ways. I assure you, throughout your day, throughout your week, in your matrix, the way your fluid amoeba-like walls exist, there are places and spots where you can find the aptitude and the joy and the fun of going after something. But it's only going to start if you've paid attention to the construct, the basic construct, and then what's inside of that is your actual environment. This is one of the things that's come out of COVID that can be in this program, because it will forever be a reference on a period of time when all of us had to learn a new way of living, a very odd new way. And the amount of people who have desperately struggled with working from home because they never understood, even the people they don't like at work, how much energy you glean just from being around the energy of other human beings in the same building or the same room. And yet we always talk about our space and our space and our space. It's like, you really know what your space is? Are you really clear on it? And I don't even mean the space in your house. I mean the space in every room. If anybody has ever heard me, and I've done it very rarely, Joy Rinaldi, but I have done it. You ever heard me actually sit and coach people on the craft, actual art of acting? One of the most important things that you would ever hear me say to someone is, I would ask the actor the question, and I don't care what the script says, I would ask you, where are you? It is still to this day one of the least used, one of the most important mind games we play as artists, especially in film and television commercials, that we get tied to the script, and it doesn't effing matter. What matters is what you decide. And if you think a conversation in your own house is the same if it's being had in the bathroom, the bedroom, or the kitchen, you are dead wrong. Same script, two people, same relationship, 3 different scenes, I promise you. And you know it. And that's the environment of the matrix of your life. Inside and outside the house. What is your matrix like when it comes to roommates, which is just the same as a husband or wife, a partner? How much does society affect your matrix? This is all your own personal wiring, you guys. It's not me. But this is what affects us every day pursuing this profession, because we get frustrated and our matrix oftentimes doesn't help. Your family. Be aware of your matrix, because it is the killer of careers. With all respect, I've spent a lot of time with a lot of us for 3 decades. I've consulted 2,000 people from all over the world. And I'm a pretty self-aware, pretty introspective dude myself. I'm sharing with you that if you don't spend more time understanding what your matrix is, I'm not talking necessarily about wholesale changes, you guys. I'm just saying I had to learn it so bad. I still struggle with it to this day. I'm not perfect at it, but I have control of it. But sometimes I've learned to wait 2 hours to respond to that text because I don't have to do it now. But the old Kevin would have done it now all day long, and the only person I was hurting was me. You gotta get a handle on your matrix, because every single thing around us visually affects us, especially when now we spend 98% of our time just staring at ourselves on the wall. So, I just change clothes sometimes and go in a different room just for the hell of it. That should have been way funnier, Christina, but that's cool. You should try. Just walk around with no shorts on, only just don't get on a Zoom and then forget your video is on, because that doesn't work out well. And one of the ways that the matrix seeps into us and we don't know it is big killer of careers. And I actually drilled down on this later in the program is the experts that all of our peers are about what we should be doing. And when you don't have a good handle on your matrix, we oftentimes are far more influenced by what people think we should have in our backyard or should be doing. You should do that Pilates thing, or you should do that CrossFit thing. But this is our matrix, you guys. Every single time you make one of those decisions, you're altering how you wake up and function every day. Are you really clear on your environment as part of your matrix? And the third main point about matrix is your infrastructure. It all sounds the same, right? It's not. Construct, environment, infrastructure is not the same. Where do you live geographically? Is that a proper matrix for you? What kind of car do you have? I use California example. I could use any city. I know tons of people in Los Angeles who always live near the beach because they needed the beach. I don't. That doesn't mean I don't like the beach. I just don't have to wake up next to it as part of my matrix. But if someone believes they do, then that's where your ass should live. I'm a big advocate of sacrifice and discipline. They're two words actors don't like. They're two words that are paramount if you want to ever reach the top 1% of anything. Sacrifice and discipline does not mean disavowing what your matrix needs to be. There's a difference in living near the beach and then just going down and spending all day long getting stoned and sitting on it. Those are two different things. So don't ever, thank you, Napoleon, I appreciate that. I'm glad you did that yesterday, that's cool. So I'm just saying that don't misunderstand matrix with habit or routine. It's not what I mean. The infrastructure, you guys, you are the master of this, no one else. What is the old thing? The tangle web, we, whatever, when we practice to deceive. Yeah, that we weave when we practice to deceive. You do it to yourself. How much are you deceiving yourself by the construct and the environment and the infrastructure of your matrix? I'm not talking about being a jerk. I'm not talking about trying to ruin your relationship. I'm not talking about any of this. Is not an extremism conversation. This is an awareness conversation as a foundation about your dreams. And for us as actors and artists and what that means to us. And you may not have done it when you were younger. For some of the young people here, maybe you have not spent as much time doing it yet. But I'm encouraging you right now, if you haven't spent enough time doing it, make sure you have your matrix set up and designed in the smallest of ways. It doesn't have to be monster, but you do have to be mindful of it. It has to be something that you constantly tweak and constantly protect to make sure you understand you do what's necessary. It doesn't have to be a lot. I happen to live, some of you guys know I played golf in college and wanted to be a professional. I happen to live really near a driving range. I'm near it. I don't go over every day and practice putting. Not that I shouldn't, but I don't. But the truth of the matter is, it's right there. I can just walk out and actually look at it, and it helps. That's what I mean. And we have that in our house. We have that in the vehicle that we choose. I don't know what does it for you. Whether you're a gym person or a hiker, I don't care. I just care that you don't lose sight of the fact that whatever you've made your matrix up in your life to be, I'm telling you now will matter when it comes to pursuing this business, because it is pursuing the business is so tough on us. And that's all. Does everybody kind of understand what I mean by matrix in this context? Just, okay. All right, white dude, whatever. And there, Paul has put matrix up with the side screen. That's definitely going to get us a cease and desist. That's
for sure. No, this actually is this is a free, this was a
all
free
we have
image.
to do is put Joe Pantoliano in there, and then we're golden.
Free image. Free image.
Okay, I'm going to jump right on the last one because we're going to run out of time.
No problem. I'll just let
All right,
people do the
guys.
screen capture, and I'll run this at the end. And I'm
The S of dreams. Huh, that's weird off of what I just said. Self. Strange how that tags right onto everything that I've said so far. All the way back to the very beginning of you are the product. And now I'm going to come back to actually self. Because yes, you guys, we are a shoe, a bell pepper, whatever. That's the exterior of our product. But the interior of our product is our human self. The core of you, the soul of you, the spark of you that nobody else is. And in my opinion, if you really choose to want to pursue this art for money, you are making a choice to put yourself in harm's way. simply because we are thinking, feeling human beings. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I clearly have done it for a long time. But I am telling you that when it comes to you, you the human being, you yourself, it is extraordinarily important to me whether you've achieved some of your dreams, 1% of them, I don't care. I'm probably at about 87 to 91. I've done every single thing in this profession except be a celebrity or star. But I'm working on it. And so what I'm sharing with you is, what are you bound by? What is your self run by? I will share with you an example of one of mine of what I mean. I'm somebody who lives my life by the 4 agreements. I started that a long time ago. There are probably a handful of people out of the 52 people left in this Zoom who may know the book. If you don't, I highly recommend it. Or whatever it is, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, Celestine Prophecy, I don't care. It makes no difference to me. Or something by Dr. Seuss sometimes can be just as effective. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. But the 4 agreements for me is one of the things that helps keep myself in a healthy place. Be impeccable with your word. Don't assume. Don't take things personally. And always do your best. Because it covers the fact that I'm a really genuine person. It covers the fact that I ask a lot of questions because I've learned not to assume. It covers the fact that if you want to take anything personally, you could take everything personally if you really want to in life. And the do your best part is the athlete in me. So that's, for myself, that's one of the things that binds me to me, grounds me to daily life. Of every single time I go and read for Queen of the South twice last month and kick the shit out of both the auditions and don't get either of them. No, it's okay. It's completely fine. Obviously, I've gotten past that. Clearly, I've let those 2 auditions go back in December. No, I'm completely fine. I mean, I know the executive producer and I still didn't get hired. No, it's completely fine. I didn't need those 2 jobs. Who cares? Right. I murdered them. Didn't get it. I use the 4 agreements. It's one of the many things that I use. I don't know what your philosophy is, but I do know this. What are your morals? What is your character? What is your integrity? I don't mean that in some highfalutin way. What I mean by it is, do you really know? Because, funny enough, I just finished discussing actor issues. That's weird that this comes after that. Thank you, Danielle. Because that's going to be part of what drives how you deal with actor issues. Yourself. That's the constant bifurcation, ever so subtly sometimes, and a Grand Canyon others, of the difference between show and business and you in the middle. That's what happens. Who you are, how you speak, how you engage with the players in this industry when you encounter them, either on purpose or by accident, spontaneously or planned, it makes no difference. How well you get to know them at all levels. What is yourself? You have to know what your self's philosophy is, or you're just going to be literally run over by this profession, because it will pull you in every different direction every single day, because somebody is always a false prophet, and I don't even mean that they're a jerk. It's just the nature of the hope of success, of being successful as an actor. It's incredibly magnetic. It's incredibly blinding, and it can be incredibly destructive. You got to get down with what your self philosophy is, and you have to know it. You have to know it. You have to breathe it. Because this profession will test you every time you turn around. And it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't stop testing you just because you're 70, Tom. Greatest basketball playing 70-year-old you'll ever meet in your life, Tom Katzis, ladies and gentlemen. It also affects your professional choices, especially as you get over those projects. If you don't have control of yourself, you'll lose sight of what success is. I know for me that I've been successful in this profession. I haven't been as successful all the way as to what I would like to be. But I know that because I understand myself, it gives me the chance to continue to get that other 13 or 9% I'm looking for. And then we sometimes tend to think that if we suddenly get that series, which could happen to any of us on any given day tomorrow, and all of a sudden I'm in some trade paper on whatever, that's just going to make it all good. I don't really think we have to spend that much time on all of the tragic stories in Hollywood of all the successful people who are no longer with us. That's not an accurate statement. Glamour and success does not solve or resolve the issue of yourself at all. Okay? Because when it's all said and done, this is all we have to go forward in this program. This is all we have to go forward with pursuing our profession. Please write it down if you haven't. I'm begging all of you, please write down my fuel tank. That's all we got. We don't have anything else. Life is crazy. Life is overwhelming. Stuff is always happening. Many of us are at the age where we've already lost our parents or we're losing our parents. Or people are getting old enough now, as it is with me, it seems, for the last 15 years, of so many people that I've lost way too early in life. Time is short, even when you're 30. And all of us only have so much gas in the tank to pursue this profession. One of the only ways to protect your fuel tank and keep it with a healthy amount of fluid in it is to know yourself. It's your psyche, it's your ego. We can all be fluid with our talent. But remember, Hollywood doesn't stop to consider your life. You think you're always going to have an audition on a day when you're in a good mood? This is one of the things that we fool ourselves about working in Los Angeles. You think that if you're a series regular and you have to do 7 scenes tomorrow and you find out that your father just got killed in a car wreck, you think that hasn't happened to somebody in Hollywood? You think having a show in your back pocket makes that day easier? Piece of cake? But that's what it is to be a professional. And being a professional means you have to know yourself well enough that no matter what happens, you can still go do your job. You have to know yourself, your character, your integrity well enough to realize professionals don't make excuses. Traffic isn't a reason. Life isn't a reason. That doesn't mean you don't go home and deal with grief or loss or whatever. But if you don't know yourself, if you can't keep your fuel tank gassed up, I don't care how much money you're making. When life dumps on you, you still have to get your lines right. I've listened to this crap my whole career here about how when I'm this or when I book that or when I'm this, everything will be fine. Bullshit. Bullshit. It is only knowing yourself. It is only knowing what you are bound by. It is only the ability to be able to continue to be a professional when you have to. Because there's Murphy's Law, and then there's actors Murphy's Law. And even if it's not as severe as what I'm saying, but maybe it's because your dog had to go to the vet, and your dog may die, and then of course 2 seconds later, you get an awesome audition, which doesn't line up with the emotional space you're currently in over there. Thanks, Paul. That can only happen for those of us who spent 7 years trying to save their dog. What I'm sharing with you guys, unless you know yourself and what does it for you, it is hard to keep that gas tank full for the business, and even on some days, what's required to be a professional. Because we all deal with stuff. If you haven't spent time talking to people who do this for a living, find somebody to effing talk to. Because if you think for 1 second that life just stops and everything is just butterflies and sunshine, when you have to learn 7 pages or do 10 scenes tomorrow and somebody's dying of cancer that matters to you, you're on crack. That happens to everybody. So being aware of that is imperative. And my final point on this, on the whole program of dreams, is this. I'm not a big advocate of the phrase side hustle. I don't really particularly care for that. You know, I guess maybe it's just because I grew up, we called it a part-time job. Or what I called it, just the way you pay the bills, whatever that may be. I've had many of them. I'm not really a big advocate of it, but I know this. This is one of the most detrimental elements of pursuing this profession that I've ever seen, is that which we are required to do. If we weren't lucky enough to have a trust fund, and we didn't necessarily take certain measures in our life early on to make a whole bunch of money, which I didn't. I instead spent 24 years having an actors organization, and most of my customers are fairly broke. That should be way funnier. Come on, y'all. That's some funny shit. So my point to that being this: when you look at yourself, setting aside all that can happen in life and the philosophy of what grounds you, whatever it is that you do to pay the bills, to keep food on the table, to keep a roof over your head, however that happens, do this. Make sure that that's at least neutral time, not negative time. There are a zillion ways to make $100 and $150 a day in this world today. I can give you 100 online examples if we had more time. Don't let the way you pay your bills be something that empties your fuel tank. It has to be at least neutral. I grew up in the restaurant business, and I'll never forget the day I quit my last restaurant job and said, I will never do this shit again. And that doesn't mean it isn't great for some people. It just wasn't healthy for me anymore. Self is the only thing you're going to have the rest of pursuing your career and the other 6 elements of this program actually give you a shot at being able to do it consistently and successfully. Thank you all very much for spending an hour with me and a half or so. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. Let me share self with everyone. I didn't expect to be crying. Bear with me. Here we go. All right, everyone. Sorry about that. There we go. And if I didn't make it clear earlier, you are welcome to take screen captures. And one of the things Kevin and I are trying to figure out is how to get this information out to you for those of you who have attended. Whether that's a standalone host or we email it to you, given the content we've covered today. I'll figure out the easiest way.
Hey, Paul, I'll take a couple of quick questions, and then I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave the last few minutes to you.
No problem. Let me just insert that down at the bottom of your Zoom frame for everyone. This has been kind of informal. I think for Kevin, I will go off your lead. If you want people just to unmute themselves and sneak in a question verbally so they don't have to type it out, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I just would like to make sure that it's not, a 17-parter, which we're kind of have a nature towards, something I can answer. Thank you, Napoleon. I appreciate that. Something that's fairly quick, only because I know I'm sure we can go over a few minutes, but I do need to give you, Paul, time to say what you need to say about the rest of the program. But yeah, so somebody who's got something, that was related to what I just said, fire away. Thank you, Mary. Yes, Catherine.
Is there okay, so I'm thinking about becoming a director if I can make it. Would that help being here? I mean, I've used the Actors Network actors before, and I know that I want to keep doing that if I can find the next gig for my director, possibilities. So can I stay here for directorial goal?
Are you asking me, do I believe the other 6 elements of this program would be of value to you as a director?
Yes.
I would say absolutely, but I don't think it has anything to do with casting. I think it has everything to do with how we view the business.
Okay.
When you look at goals and brand and labor and stage and class, as the acronyms that I've chosen, I do believe in the world we live in today that the idea of being a director is a lot more self-driven. And so I certainly do, but as you know me a long time, Catherine, the one thing I am not is I am not a salesman. So that will be a decision you have to make.
Oh,
Another question.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Paul's letting you unmute yourself, so I can't see you because of the screen. I can only see like 4 people. So there's 51 here. So if somebody's got something real quick, fire at me.
You rock.
Wow, crickets. Thanks, Tom. I didn't think I'd shut everybody up. I mean, Ben Dukes is here. How can he be quiet? That's impossible.
I don't know if I'm being heard here. Kevin?
Hey, Melanie.
Oh, Kevin. I tell you, I had a birthday yesterday. I turned 74 in Earth years.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
and you re-inspired me. And it was so great to hear your philosophy. Because
Awesome.
you're absolutely right. So
Thank
it's
you, Melanie.
a joy to see you and be part of you again.
It was awesome to see you. It was awesome to see you RSVP. So it's nice to hear from you.
I'm one of the 1991ers, folks. And hello to all of you.
Oh, I know.
Congratulations, man.
Thanks, love.
Well, hey, Kevin, it's Jess from Hawaii.
Hey, Miss Hawaii.
Hey, I just wanted to share with you, and I really appreciate what you shared today. I also want to say, having made it to the 1% of a different profession, everything that you described is completely accurate as to how I achieved that level of success. I'm now helping to transition to this career instead. But it's hard when it's something that means something to you, if that makes any sense. Like the other career that I succeeded in doesn't mean as much because it wasn't what I really wanted to do. It was a survival thing that turned into something I was really good at, that I made money at, but I really didn't care for. And I'm not sure if, 10 years ago when we met, I really heard the last thing that you said, which was, don't let the thing that pays the bills be a negative or drain on your tank. Even though I'm successful at that, it drains my tank, and I find when I'm on set, my tank is filled. So anyway, I just wanted to give you some props. I think you've really concisely broken down what it takes to be successful, because I've done that.
Yes, you have. Congratulations, for sure. And I'll see you soon.
Yes, you will see me soon.
Anyone else before I go?
Yeah, I have a quick question for you, Kevin.
Yes, sir, Paul. Good to see you, sir.
It's so good to see you too, man. It's been too long. I really love that you just said you're not a salesman, because as an actor, I'm so often told, well, you got to sell yourself. You got to sell this. You got to sell it.
Yeah. Hate the phrase. Hate it.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't come to LA to be a salesman. I could do that anywhere. Could you talk about that a little bit more? How you expand on that?
I think the nature is a great question, Paul, and literally, Paul Jackson, make a note of that, because that would be kind of one of those individual live Zooms we're going to do as part of the additional part of the program going a long way. I think the reason for that is that because we are products, and the people on the other side of the camera who tend to be the ones who say that to us, agent managers, casting directors, etc., it's because they know that we're a product. And so therefore the word sell yourself naturally comes in. Whereas a lot of what I didn't necessarily try to sell myself. I just got better at being myself. I got better at being myself within the matrix of the business of Hollywood. I talked about the matrix today. I mean, your own house. But then there's the matrix of Hollywood. So what I just simply got better at, Paul, was I was never really trying to sell myself, but because of the way the nature of being an actor versus the other side of the desk functions in that matrix, I simply, in the first 3 or 4 years before I started the Actors Network, you guys got to remember, I started the Actors Network about 4 years after I moved here. So I'd already gone through a lot. I simply got better at being the most appropriate best part of myself in each scenario I found myself in, and on its own merit. We use this phrase all the time about something that's genius or something that is needed or what we go, oh, it sells itself. That's exactly what yourself can do as an actor without ever trying to sell, is simply becoming a better, understanding yourself better so that you are more of your natural self of who they would hire and want on that set in every single different scenario you would be in. And that's why you never have to worry about selling yourself once you get there.
I get
There
it.
you go.
I
That's
get
what
it.
I would
Thank
say.
you.
One more and I got to run, guys.
Okay, can you
Paul
hear
will
me?
tell you about the rest. Is that
Kevin?
Jerome?
Yeah. Thank
Hey,
you,
Jerome.
everybody. Hope you're safe. Thank you, Kevin. I wondered if you could possibly expound, clarify on the, looking at breakdowns as projects. Could you clarify that a little bit? Maybe an anecdote? I don't know.
No, absolutely. Jerome, that's a wonderful question for me to finish on because it's very specific and it's very clear. What I mean by that, Jerome, is who's the cast? Where is it being shot? What's the genre that it's in? Is it city or is it rural? You see, we just view, the role that exists by the title of the role or the description of the age range and the ethnicity. But until you view it from the project standpoint, a plumber that's going to do something on a show like Yellowstone versus a plumber that's going to be hired for an episode of Law and Order, those are two different plumbers. And that's what I mean by viewing something as a project, Jerome. When you start realizing that lawyers are not the same in every city, they don't look the same, they don't sound the same. Sometimes they are, but when you start viewing things as a project and you pull back to the existing series cast and you look at a show like Shameless versus looking at a show like Stranger Things, you could take the same type of character, description, or even age range in Stranger Things and Shameless. You're not going to cast the same two people. That's what I mean by viewing stuff as a project so that we don't always catch ourselves reading ourselves into every single Caucasian or African American or Asian American, male or female, age range 26 to 37, and we think we're right for all of them because no, your ass isn't. That's what I mean. And there's not perfect thing. This is not a Kevin formula that is 100% on, but you'll start to naturally understand what I mean about not reading yourself into every role when we don't have enough time to actually chase down everything. That's what I mean, Jerome. Great question.
Thank you.
You bet. Guys, Paul is going to give you an extra few minutes on this. I hope to see some of you just in life going forward. I hope I'll see some of you guys around February 4th when we continue with goals. And if you don't, I understand. It's no problem. Much love, deep respect and appreciation for being here. And I will see you guys all real soon. Stay safe. Let's hope 2021 is better and just keep hanging in there. We'll get through this shit together. Take care, you guys. Talk to you later. Paul, I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.